And we also have a silent auction, which is where a lot of the business come in. We appreciate all donations, but donations valued at $25 or higher get your logo put on the placemats that we have, and those donations are given out at the silent auction, which is one of the main ways we make the money to fundraise the troop. A little more about the event is that it is happening on Sunday, March 12th from 7:30 to 11:30 a.m. and it's at the VFW. Thank you all for your past support, and I hope you all have a very nice day.
Nathan, if someone wants to participate, they want to sponsor, where should they go?
I believe a lot of scouts are going more individually to businesses to ask and to make it easier for, I guess, people to give whatever donations that they could do. But they could also contact the troop or myself or anyone associated with the troop to get in touch.
Okay, thank you. We'll forward your information out to our contact database.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, good job. All right, so in terms of the flow of today's meeting, I'm going to say a few words, about 35 minutes about the ABA. Joking, sorry. And then we'll have Yolanda Greaves, a select board member, moderate the panel discussion. And they've been fielded with questions that we've received from you, the audience, and the town in advance, and we'll close with some additional thoughts. How does that sound, okay? Audience participation, all right, there we go. So let me just say a few words about the Ashland Business Association. I joined the ABA about 20 years ago, actually. My wife and I became residents in Ashland. We lived over at Pine Lake Townhomes right across from Dunkin' Donuts before Dunkin' Donuts was actually there. And I wanted to be part of an organization that gave back to the community. I wanted to be part of an organization that helped businesses grow. And, I found that. And I think it's a great organization. It's important to have a vibrant community, and part of that community is the businesses that are within the community. So one of the things we would ask is think about shopping local. There's a lot of great businesses here. As I've gotten older, I've had some aches and pains, some pulled muscles, some ligaments and things like that. We have great physical therapists here. We have great realtors, great bagel table. So, please consider to shop here in Ashland. There's great opportunities. We give back in a lot of different ways. We give scholarships out. Thank you, Chrissy Reynolds, for chairing the scholarship committee. To Ashland seniors or high school students that exemplify community service. And we give out 2 of those a year. And we are involved in lots of other things, the reality fair at the high school, and many other organizations. So throughout the year, we have different types of events. We have community events like this. We have networking events for our businesses with other organizations like Metro West Chamber. We host a comedy night that's been very successful. This past one was in person, which was great. And we have ribbon cuttings, and we're hoping to have more ribbon cuttings here in Ashland to promote and support new businesses that come in. So if you are interested in more about the Ashland Business Association, we have a little brochure up here. Feel free to speak to any of the board members. Here we have Beth Reynolds, who's on the board, Dick Bennett, again, Chrissy Reynolds, myself. We have membership committee member Valerie Gaines, and some of the other board members who weren't able to make it, specifically Peter Weisgarber, that had to go to Beacon Hill to support an initiative, but he was very involved, so I want to thank him as well. So at this point, I'm going to pass the floor off to Yolanda Greaves, who will be moderating the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Also, thank you to Peter Weisberger, who did coordinate. And just real quick, so I'm Yolanda Greaves. I am a member of the Select Board. I am also, the company I work for, Empowering Systems, Inc., is also a member of the ABA. But really, you're here to hear from our three panelists. My left, your right, we're going to start. We have Peter Matchick, who is our planner. We have Brandy Kinsman in the middle, who is the chair of the Select Board. And then on her right, your left, is Michael Herbert, who is our town manager. As Adam mentioned, questions were submitted beforehand, so I'm not going to say we might allow questions afterwards because I have quite a few, and I think we will hope to get through all of them in the time that we have. So panelists, just so that you know, I am going to start with Brandy, and then I'm going to split the questions up so that not one person does a lot of talking all at once. So Brandy, I'm going to start with you. This question, and it's a two-parter. The Ashland Select Board has always been so supportive of the business community. What are some ways you help to support businesses in Ashland that sets us apart from other towns? That's the first part. Go ahead.
So first of all, I would say we have a rock star economic development director in Beth Reynolds, which I think is a huge benefit to everyone here in the room, all of our businesses, as well as any potential businesses coming to Ashland. So I would say that's first and foremost. And then, when I think about what has brought new businesses to Ashland over the last couple of years, I really think about our business incentive program, which was first approved in 2018, and we started giving out grants in 2019. And those types of grants are things like facade and sign improvement and 0% financing through Needham Bank, which we pay the financing for, or being able to finance amenities or equipment. So a business that would be coming into town is able to leverage those grants to be able to help get up off the ground when they come to Ashland. So, in the last 3.5 years since we've been giving out those grants, we've helped 21 different businesses here in Ashland. And the cost to the community has been about $400,000. And this is all funded through our meals tax. In fact, the whole economic development budget is funded through our meals tax. So, we've really been able to attract really great businesses to Ashland. Like when we think about, in the last year, we had Zeta Fencing come from Natick. And Zeta is a world-class Olympic fencing, I don't want to call them a dojo, but a facility. They have great world-class fencers, and we were able to, through the business incentive program, be able to bring them to Ashland. Even like Crossroads PT, we were able to bring them into our community by helping get them off the ground. So I think the business incentive program has really been an attractive incentive for businesses to come to Ashland. I think that kind of sets us apart. And also, we've done a lot of investment in Ashland over the last few years, especially. You can see from all the construction, whether it's downtown or 126, some of the larger capital projects that we've been working on. And I think the investment in the community really, really is attractive to other businesses and residents to want to come to Ashland. So,
a follow-up question to that are there any new board initiatives possibly coming down the road that businesses should be on the lookout for?
So first and foremost, we need to finish some of the projects that we've been starting. So we've got a lot that we've been working on. So this next year, we will see downtown, when we see the utility poles come down, it'll kind of finish the downtown look. Obviously, 126, we have our public safety building and our new school that's going up. But with the public safety building also frees up the parcels for our fire station and police station, and that is going to be something really exciting for our downtown that we'll be hearing more about. We had recently put out an RFI to folks that may be interested in investing in Ashland, and we've had a public forum with those results from the RFI, and we're kind of working towards a formal RFP process and town meeting in May, where hopefully we have a really good business proposal coming to Ashland to bring to the Ashland residents.
Great. And I'm actually going to stop you there because
okay.
we have some other specific questions
Okay.
to some of that.
And then the one other thing I would just say is we are starting a comprehensive plan process, and I would encourage business owners to be a part of that process because it's really important to have your voices heard as we start planning for the next 10, 20 years of Ashland. We want to make sure that we hear from all of you as part of that process as well. So.
Great. And there's also questions about that coming
Okay.
up. To you, Michael, can you tell us about the construction in town? What has been done to date and what is left? What is the anticipated completion date of the Main Street, Front Street projects? What still needs to be completed? And is there a celebration planned for the completion?
There's construction happening? No. That's like 5 questions.
Well, you know,
No.
they're all interrelated,
Yeah.
mingled.
So first, thank you all for hosting this forum, and thank you for having us. It's a great opportunity to really, I think, engage in a dialogue with the business community. So currently we have a number of projects under construction. Everybody thinks of the big 4, right? We got the big 4 projects: downtown, 126, we have the Mendez School, and we have the public safety building that's happening. But then we also have other projects that are going on in town as well that have a construction element to it. So we have the Valentine property, that is, the barn currently is being renovated. We also have a Warren barn that will eventually be reconstructed as well. And we also, a lot of times we forget about some of the other infrastructure projects that we've done recently, including a $4 million renovation of the MBTA access road, which in turn, making that investment yielded the YMCA making a decision to have a new facility here. We've done a $2.2 million supplemental water connection with the MWRA. We also did a $3 million expansion of the West Union sewer line. You know, some of these are big things, and then we have some smaller things as well. But I suspect this question is really geared towards downtown and 126, since that has really the most impact on your everyday life, right? So I'll start with downtown. So currently what we have done is we have installed all of the infrastructure underground necessary to move the utility lines from the poles underground. We've also done most of the streetscape work. So you'll see that with the new sidewalks and the brick banding. We've done some landscape work as well, installed some trees and some other vegetation to help beautify the downtown area. We've done things like installed new traffic lights, which are a lot better than the old traffic lights in terms of traffic flow, put in new street lights. What we have to do left is, so currently what we're doing right now is we're jacking underneath the tracks for the utility lines to bury those, and those are those big pits that you see near Stones or across from Stones. We expect that to be done in a couple of weeks. Coming back in the spring, Gioso, who is our contractor, will be working on the sections between Main and Front Street and Main and Summer Street. So that section there, they'll be installing the granite curb and the sidewalk and the brick banding there as well. We will also this year be connecting the utilities to the individual homes and businesses along the scope area. So get those utility lines set up. And we'll do a final pave, and then we will do some restriping, and then we will also, the final step is really to take those poles down. And then, as Brandy mentioned, that's when I think you'll see the finished project. I do anticipate we'll have some type of celebration for that, even if it's just to say, hooray, it's over. So that's downtown. 126, again, that's a project that is taking a little while. Construction takes a while. So they're continuing to do the road work. They're in the process now of doing some retaining walls where necessary according to the plans. They'll install the lights. They're not removing the poles in that project, but they'll do a final pave, and we anticipate that'll be done in spring of 2024. So just, in general, everybody gets excited when you see the pictures at town meeting and everything's in the reports and the plans and stuff. Everybody gets all jazzed up about that. We're in the stage now where it's like slogging through just to get it constructed. So I realize that's a pain, and thank you all for your patience, especially you business owners. But if you can, just try to keep your vision and your sights set on what that finished project is going to be, because it's going to be a transformative time in Ashland.
So, Michael, I'm going to do a follow-up question. As you were talking about downtown, one of the other questions was, what are the future plans for the downtown police and fire station now that the new public safety building is almost complete? Brandy had started talking about it. If you could go a little further into the process for that.
Yeah, Brandy gave a good succinct update of kind of where we are now. So the next step is to issue an RFP, and that is going to be tailored to the feedback that we had received from the community in the forum and the survey that we had done. We did a survey that had over 400 responses to it. So as far as Ashland surveys goes, it had a really good response rate. And from that point, it's really a market-driven decision. And, that's one thing I want to try to address today overall is this. There's an idea that government decides what goes into certain buildings and what happens in those buildings. And it's really a market-driven type of exercise. So a business or an entity that's looking at leasing or buying that property is they have to look at that, and they have to feel like they're going to make money to make that investment in the renovation and the expenses associated with operating an enterprise like that. So hopefully we'll get a number of proposals back in response to this RFP. Then we'll have a public process to determine what it is that we narrow down and select.
Great, thank you. Peter, you've been patiently waiting, so first question for you. This follows on to some of the development with the streetscape improvements in our major commercial areas almost complete. Do you think it will make it more attractive for new businesses to come to town? And if so, how is our zoning set up so that it will attract, and this person says, the right business?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the ABA for inviting me to sit on this panel. I've been here in Ashland for 4 years. I don't know if I've had the pleasure to meet everybody, but I want to introduce myself. I think the municipal investment and the state investment within the downtown Ashland is the foundation for private investment. So I think with the end in sight, or as Michael said, with the scheduled end in sight, we will see investments within the downtown. I think we're seeing that as applications come through the planning board. The planning board has been very busy the last couple of years. But one project in particular over on Pond Street, which was 501 Pond Street, that was an apartment development that's going to bring also 6,000 square feet of business, indoor commercial space. I think that investment that's going to be made is piggybacking and/or is being made with the notion that the state has redeveloped the roadway. And I think that's a prime example of how you see the municipal investment followed by the private investment. In the downtown area, I think we're seeing that. Obviously, the conversation is still happening on the 10 to 60 Main Street building within the planning board, but that's another prime example of a redevelopment occurring, on top of and/or shortly after, the municipal investment within the downtown. To answer your question on the zoning, zoning's a funny thing. There's no right and there's no wrong. After being a planner for 10 years now, zoning's difficult, right? And also zoning's difficult because no two projects are the same. No two areas of land are the same. There's always different characteristics to a site, to a development, to a balance sheet of the developer that has to all factor in and all check out at the end of the day. I do think Ashland has very good zoning for our downtown that promotes the right type of development. 2021, with the planning board and the planning office, we redesigned and redeveloped and I would say dusted up our downtown overlay district. Is it perfect? By all means, no. But it's pretty good. And compared to what other towns have within their downtown, addressing mixed use in the form of development, which people, I believe, think is the right form of development within a historical downtown district, I think we have, very good foundational and fundamental zoning to carry through to attract the hopefully, right kind of developer, which is foreseen by the residents of Ashland.
Great, thank you, Peter. So Michael, the next question's for you, and again, Brandy alluded to this a little bit. The question is, I've heard about a comprehensive plan in the works. Can you tell us more about that and what the timeline for that looks like?
Sure. So, yes, Ashland is embarking on a comprehensive plan effort, and we hope this will be the first comprehensive plan completed since 2003, so 20 years ago. We've had a couple of efforts that got us further along down the field, but we just haven't been able to complete those for a number of different reasons. But a comprehensive plan, for those of you that don't know what it is, it's essentially a master plan for the community. And it talks about all of the different elements that make up a town and make up a community and how they all interrelate with each other and how they reflect a vision that the community has decided it wants to embrace for the next 10 to 20 years. So a comprehensive plan looks at things like zoning, it looks at things like housing, it looks at things like your transportation systems, your infrastructure, like your water and sewer infrastructure, open space and recreation, cultural assets, services even, education. Basically anything that you can think of that relates to a municipality is part of your comprehensive planning effort. And so it's a unique opportunity for the community as a whole, and a rare opportunity, really, for the community as a whole to actually get together, dialogue, talk about what they want versus what is actually reality and what can happen, and come up with a vision of what Ashland should be in the year 2040, and set out goals and priorities to help us achieve that vision. At the end of the day, it's going to be the document that we measure every major decision against. Everything that goes to town meeting, every select board vote, every planning board decision is going to go back to this comprehensive plan and say, how does it relate to the comprehensive plan that we put together? So I hope I'm impressing upon you the magnitude and the importance of it. And then also I'm hoping that you're getting from our message here just how important it is for you to be involved in it. We have to have representative voices from the community as part of that. So we're looking at this to be a 18 to 24 month long process. It's going to take that long to get all of the data, to get resident input, to reach out to segments of the community that we haven't traditionally heard from and make sure that they're engaged and really get a robust idea of what that vision is. And then it's going to take some time within that 18 to 24 month period to distill all of those goals down into actionable steps that we can take over the next few years. So you have a couple of ways to participate. So boards and committees have the ability to appoint someone from their board or committee to sit on what we are calling our Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, which is really going to be the guiding force for this planning effort moving forward. But then people also have the ability to be a part of that steering committee as representatives from their precincts. So we have 6 precincts now. So I would encourage you to look at getting involved in if you're on a board or committee, expressing an interest with that board or committee to be a part of the comprehensive planning effort, or if not, applying to be part of the comprehensive plan steering committee as a precinct member. And I think that about summarizes it. Did I leave anything out?
Could I just
Brandy
add one
wants to
thing?
add.
So outside of the steering committee, there will also be plenty of public forums and surveys and outreach to the public and to the business community. And so even if you can't or, you know, don't have the capacity to serve on the steering committee, we definitely want your input as we go through this process. And we'll be breaking it down by element, as Michael said. So there will be like an economic development section that we're going to be talking about that's really important. There'll be things like schools. There will be open space. And so we need feedback on all of that too. And so there'll be plenty of opportunities for folks to get involved in whatever way they can. But just, you know, like I said, it's important that we have everyone's voices heard.
Great, thank you for adding that, Brandy. I was standing here thinking that, so. We're going to go back to Peter. Peter, the question is, there has been talk of more apartments being built in Ashland. How many more are coming to town, and are you concerned about impacts these may have on our community?
I think number one, I would say yes. I think all apartments in the planning, speaking for the planning board, we are concerned with impacts on the community, infrastructure, water, sewer, traffic. Those are obviously the main three, but obviously the school system. And every time an apartment complex is applied for through the planning board process, you know, those three elements and four elements are, you know, highly scrutinized. We have seen a flurry of apartments and permitting, you know, with the Village of the Americas, which finishes a 20-year master plan development, which started back in 2002 with the Faffer Company. And that is going to bring 174 units. And then also the 501 Pond Street project, which was a property also owned by the Faffer Company, who is selling it just sold it to a developer. That's going to bring 120 units. Right now on the table, though, in front of the planning board, we do have 200 units at 10 to 60 Main Street. And we also have the 301 project, which is the Shaw's Plaza, which where the owner of the site has partnered with Wind Development. And they are proposing, I believe, 120 units. I think with that said, we are in a building moratorium. And that expires in January 1st of 2025 or December 31st of 24, whichever way you got it. And so I don't see, you know, I think the two projects that we have permitted will start construction this spring. I can't give a time frame on the other two, which I mentioned, the 10 to 60 Main and then the 301, the Shaw's Plaza. With that said, after those projects, I don't see too much. I can't predict too many more apartments, but you never know. You know, this is also one of those elements where, you know, as our town manager Michael said, some of it's a private, you know, it's privately driven, right? And I think just stepping back, not just from Ashland, but from a regional standpoint, we all understand that the MBTA has, in the legislature, has rolled out MBTA zoning, which is going to be part of our master plan and our study for that, which looks to develop, you know, apartment units by right within a half mile of a transit station. So that is going to be something that's going to be highly scrutinized by the town, and obviously the master plan committee. We do not have to adopt zoning until and/or file zoning until December 31st or January 1st of 24 or 25. So we still have some time, and obviously we plan to do the master plan to look at that element. And from other things, just to note, from a land perspective, right? There's not too much. There's not land, a lot of land left in Metro West. The last subdivision that the town of Ashland permitted was in 2016. It's being developed right now. There's no new subdivisions even open and/or coming down the pipeline. And I haven't seen too many A&R lots that just create a buildable lot for a single-family house. And so I think, yes, housing is predominantly now rental. However, I think that also leads to a conversation surrounding there's not that much land area to be building single-family residential. That's been built out to a point. But that's what I foresee coming down the pipeline.
Follow up to that, other than these apartment complexes that everyone is talking about, what else is the planning board working on, and are there any new businesses coming forward into town?
Sure. So the planning board's been doing a lot of permitting the last 2 years, and so to be able to say we've been working on a lot of stuff, we've been working on a lot of reviewing applications. But we are looking at other components. I think we're going to start shift our focus a little bit. We're going to start looking at traffic and/or parking regulations and how that's effective with the businesses, and also kind of going on that. One of our elements that came out of our downtown zoning study was to take a further or deeper dive into the uses, into our use table, to try to see if there's anything that we can do to update our use table. And I think that would be a big help for the businesses looking to move into Ashland, especially within our core of our downtown and our along our commercial indoor commercial nodes in town. And I will mention the town of Ashland. Yes, we do have Starbucks on our agenda on Thursday night. And so that is a proposal. Thank you, Brandy, for reminding me, whispering in my ear. The proposal is to put Starbucks at the now Walgreens. The planning board will be voting on that tomorrow night. So, but that will bring a 2,500 square foot standalone Starbucks to that site at the apex of the Union Street, Summer Street, Cherry Street intersection, which is a very large investment yet again, in a commercial node. And I know everyone's been talking about Starbucks coming to Ashland, and some people have been looking forward to this. But I think that's a good project, and it is another investment by a local business owner.
But if I can just follow up on that.
Sure.
Starbucks almost walked. They almost walked away because they weren't feeling the love as they were going through our regulatory process. And so one of the things we have to take a hard look at is how, if a business wants to come to town, what does it look like for them from a regulatory standpoint? Because permitting takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and if you're going through meetings after meetings after meetings, the costs add up. When the conditions keep on adding up, that adds money to it as well. So they almost walked. It took a lot of effort to just convince them to stay in the process. Now, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody about that, because I think it's also important to note that just because somebody wants to come in and they're threatening to walk, it doesn't mean that they should be able to get away with everything that they want, right? They shouldn't, you have to have some types of conditions. But one of the really hard challenges of economic development, community development, is finding that sweet spot between the balance between weighing the public interest versus the private investment that happens. So.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for that. On that note, Brandy, the next question is for you, and not necessarily a select board, but a question for you. What can the select board do through policy decision to help bring more businesses to town to lower the burden on homeowners based on the limited industrial space we have in town and the current new housing developments in the pipeline before the moratorium went into effect in November of 2022?
So that's a really good question. So Ashland is, we have some challenges that, like, our neighbors Natick and Framingham don't have, where they have a very large business, a commercial tax base. In Ashland we have, I think the split between residential and commercial is like 90% residential and 10% commercial for our tax base. And so, we have those challenges. I know that you talk to Beth Reynolds, and she has a long list of businesses that would love to come to Ashland, but we just have no space for them. So Peter talked about the 501 Pond Street project and the 100 Chestnut Street project that are going to be mixed use. Those will create more businesses that will come to Ashland, which we're excited about. I think in general, we as a board and community, we look at these mixed use projects as opportunities to be able to bring in business, because the financials for a developer have shifted over the years, and it's no longer financially viable or easily viable for a business or a developer to come in and just create pure commercial space. First of all, we don't have a ton of commercial space. We're never going to bring a real large company to Ashland, like an EMC or something. We don't have the space for that. But the mixed use gives us an opportunity to be able to bring more businesses to Ashland. And I would say too, like from a policy perspective, one of the other things that we've looked at and we will continue to look at with the comprehensive plan is the housing component. I worked with Peter on our housing production plan that we finished up in 2021, and there's a large need for affordable housing in Ashland, not low income housing, but workforce housing. So for businesses to be able to come to Ashland, they need to know that they have people that can afford to live in the town that they work in. So from a perspective where we are able, the board or by zoning, be able to negotiate higher amounts of affordable housing in some of these mixed-use projects. So Peter mentioned 501 Pond Street. The developer has offered, well, when I say offered, as part of the project, part of the application, doing 25% affordable housing as part of that. We encouraged. Same thing with 10 to 60 Main Street. So the developer is looking to have 25% affordable housing. And so, the state realizes that Peter talked about the MBTA communities zoning. The state is pushing housing. So, we are trying to make it as advantageous for the community as possible. So we try to negotiate higher amounts of affordable housing when we can. And the only other thing I would say is where we can redevelop existing parcels rather than have development happening in open space, that is something that we do encourage. Take, for instance, 10 to 60 Main Street. They're looking to put in, is it 20,000 square feet of? 34,000 square feet of a commercial space and 200 apartments. That's going to bring like a vibrancy to downtown, which is then going to spur on more development and more investment in our downtown area. So I think we're moving along the path of continuing to make Ashland an attractive place for businesses to come in, for people to want to live, and that's going to keep happening. I think as we go through this like downtown process and the 126 process, we're going to see more investment and more businesses want to come to Ashland, and hopefully, I would love to see that split where we have that 90-10 split between residents and commercial. I would love to see that change. It's funny because Michael talked about how people want to see more businesses. There's a process in trying to attract more businesses and investment into our community, and we're doing all the right things. So, I know people have apartment fatigue. I get that. I totally get that. I do agree with Peter that we've seen a flurry of activity with apartment applications, and I think part of that is circumstance. So Peter mentioned Mr. Fafford. Mr. Fafford passed away. Fafford's estate wanted to sell off their properties, so that spurred a lot of these applications that have come in. So I think people see all of this and there's a lot of anxiety, which is why we put on the building moratorium, which is why we said, okay, you know what, we need to see what the impact to our community is. So we're going to take these next 2 years and do a full analysis through the comprehensive plan process to really see what the impact is. But we know we want to increase our business presence in Ashland. We know that's important to our community and important to the long-term viability of our community. So, and we know part of that is this balance between housing and commercial too. So, I hope that answers the question.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's fine.
It's
That's good.
it's a lot.
Yep,
There's a lot
There's
there.
a lot going on.
Yeah.
With that, we're going to go to Peter, and this is more about, so in new development projects, does the planning board require developers to follow any regulations as it pertains to sustainable power, required solar, energy-saving appliances, heat pump, geothermal? Basically, we're a green community, and are we encouraging developers to follow that?
Yes, that's a big yes. I think, I will say, our bylaws have not been updated, but they can be updated. We are a stretch community. We have new building codes that just came out, that came out live via the state. We've not adopted those yet, but I think we're in discussions. But I can say, speaking from the last two big projects and also the Starbucks project, is there's many sustainable components. For the two apartment complexes, not to go back to apartments, but those will all be electric heat, electric cooktops, appliances will all be electric. And so I think also the planning board is looking to have the developer install within 2 years of the opening indoor occupancies, solar panels on the roofs. White roofs, which reflect obviously the solar impacts and or the solar heating of a building, and so we're seeing this come through a lot. I think also it's a market driven. I think the developers and or investors in new buildings are looking to make these investments because it affects their bottom line when it comes to maintaining and operating these buildings, and so I think the time is ripe. And I think we're really coming around to the sustainable factors. Obviously, the federal government is pushing it with the bills that have rolled out, which are still coming out. But yes, we are moving forward in trying to implement all sustainable processes and/or materials within the projects. And obviously, the buildings that the towns are implementing, such as the public safety building, the Mendez School, are also solar ready, which is a building code, by the way. All buildings to date have to be solar ready, but the Mendez and the public safety building, all geothermal, heat pumps, and so we are using sustainable features, and I say across the board. And I think we're seeing it now both public and privately, and I think that speaks to the technology. In the ripe timing of development within the time we're in, 2023. It still surprises me when I say it, but yes.
You're getting older, Pete.
I know.
No. We're all good. Good. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to go back to Brandy. I have a question, or someone submitted a question. I would love to know if there are still plans to apply for a cultural district designation through the Massachusetts Cultural Council. This is an initiative to allow communities to create state-sponsored cultural districts to stimulate new arts and cultural activity. I know Steve Mitchell was leading this idea a few years ago. Would love to know what may have happened with this.
So that's a good question. This was an initiative that Steve was working on through Arts Ashland Alliance, which is a 501c3 here in town. And there was talk about creating a cultural district in Ashland, which I think is a great idea. So I don't know if there's been a lot of movement on that front. We have Arts Ashland, we have our Ashland Cultural Council, and I think as part of our comprehensive plan process, we'll be talking about some of this stuff too. I know that for me personally, and I probably would say the board in general would definitely support those efforts, but the work that has to be done to kind of create that would probably be done by, say, Arts Ashland and the Cultural Council, and they would bring that to us as an initiative that then we would discuss and hopefully support.
Great. Okay. Michael, next one is for you. This is an interesting one. There seems to be some frustration and concern around the uncertainty of the future of 10 to 50 Main Street, Ashland Mills, along with the condition of the building. Can you share your thoughts on the future of this building that holds many businesses? Will there be assistance for businesses there should the development and the builder proposal go forward?
That's a good one. Let me answer the last bit first.
Okay.
Okay. So in terms of the businesses that are currently there, everybody is sympathetic to the situation, and I think there has been an authentic desire from both staff and the select board to do what they can to help those businesses if they are displaced, in terms of helping to find them new space and then trying to find a way to work with the owner to bring them back, if that's possible, at rents that are comparable to what they have now. So that's a big economic formula. But specifically, we have allocated $100,000 of ARPA funds specifically to help those businesses within that complex. Whatever program we decide to do, there's going to be money behind it to actually help effectuate it and make it happen. The developer has agreed to also help in that process as well. Specifically, there have been conversations with him, but it was a while ago, about, again, bringing them back at rents that are far less than what they could charge for the new space that they are going to be building. So, you have currently people paying $8 a square foot. I think we can all agree that the building and its condition reflects $8 a square foot. And I think if something's completed there, the retail space that you would see would be, something more comparable to Class A space. But again, hopefully we can set things up to where some of those businesses can come back at that lower rate. Maybe not $8 a square foot, but maybe 10. Also, we have worked with businesses, and Beth has done a tremendous job with this, with some of the existing businesses there to help them locate and expand. So Uppercuts Gymnasium, they actually are going to move to the Legion, I'm sorry. They're currently renovating that space, and they will be moving there. The incentive program was a big part of that, helping them do that. And then there are a couple of other businesses that we have helped as well. So, let's just talk about the bigger issue of the mill complex. First of all, I think it needs to be renovated. I think something needs to happen. It is a gateway into our downtown. It's the first thing people see as you crest that hill from Myrtle Street and you go down and you go across Mill Pond Falls. That is what greets you when you come into Ashland. It is dilapidated. My personal opinion, and I think a lot of people agree with this, you may differ, it's dilapidated, it's an eyesore, and it really does not present the type of image that we as a community want to present. So I think it's definitely important to renovate that. And the community has felt like it's important to renovate that. The zoning that has allowed the proposal to come forward, that has come forward, was passed in 2006. And the whole intent of passing that zoning was to create an incentive for owners and developers to come in and renovate a lot of these dilapidated properties, number one, and then number two, to also bring people into downtown to help support the businesses that are in downtown right now. So again, the zoning and the proposal that you see in front of the planning board right now is not a product of town staff. It's not a product of the select board. It's not a product of the planning board. It is a product of zoning that town people passed at town meeting in 2006 to achieve the goals that I just articulated. So just by a show of hands here, how many people think that that building needs to be renovated? Yeah, so the vast majority of people think that. So, and then I think the next question that people ask, or the comment that they would make, is, yeah, we want it to be renovated. We just don't want it to be 200 apartments and 34,000 square feet of commercial space. But here's the thing. Right now, there's not a market for business. There is a market for residential. And so you have to have that residential component to incentivize anybody to come in and invest tens of millions of dollars to renovate that structure. That's just economics. It's nothing that we can do, nothing that we can change. So I think, I don't know, I feel like I've tried to explain this a lot, and I guess I'm just not effective at it. But, again, it's a market-driven industry, building renovation, community development. And so we could zone things differently. We could zone things more restrictive. We could zone things, okay, 2-story max height, right? Density of 8 units per acre, something like that. And, from a zoning perspective, we would get that if people build it. But nobody's going to build it because it's not going to, first of all, it's not going to make them money. And like it or not, we're in a capitalistic society. Number 2, they can't get financing to do that. Because just like with a mortgage loan application, if you want to buy $1 million house and you've got an income of $50,000, if you go to the bank and say, I want a loan for $1 million to buy this property, they're going to look at your income, they're going to look at seeing what you bring in each month and ask themselves the question, is this enough to pay back the loan that we're about to give this person? And if you can't demonstrate that you have the income to support that, you're not going to get that loan to help finance that renovation or purchase, okay? So it's just like that with commercial, some of these larger scale projects. When you go in and you've got an all commercial building or something that's 75% commercial, banks know, private lenders know, the likelihood of that being rented and at what market value it's going to be rented at. And they're going to look at that and they're going to say, you know what? It's just not enough to sustain the loan that we're going to get. But if you look at adding the residential component, which they know will fill up like that, then it becomes a lot more palatable to them. And I mean, we could spend a whole morning and day talking about financing. But ultimately, that's kind of the setup with the mill building right now. So where I struggle sometimes is, I feel like I start setting up these A-B equations. Like, okay, it's either the 200 units and 34,000 square feet or nothing happens. Black and white like that. It's not necessarily that black and white. There are ways that you can shape the project, maybe get some unit counts down, maybe do a lot of work with the design that makes it better for the community than what it currently is before the planning board. But if you're thinking it's going to be dramatically different and get done and something actually happens there, it's just not going to happen. So, man, I feel like I went down a rabbit hole with that one.
No, I think that was very appropriate, and I think, people wanted to hear what was going on. So thank you for that.
Yeah, hopefully that helped.
Could I just add one quick thing?
Sure, go ahead.
So we have heard, the planning board has heard, the select board has heard from the community about that project, that it's really important to keep the historical nature of the mill building. And so that has been something that we have advocated for, is to keep the facade of the mill building. The design has reflected the original granite of the building, because we know it's an important asset to our community, and we don't want it to be this generic building that goes up. So it's important for us, it's important for the community to maintain that historic nature of the property.
And that's been from the very beginning. I know there's some people that say, oh, town government wanted to tear the granite buildings down. That's absolutely not true. It's a fallacy. I actually went and did some research on this recently. Go back to the first meetings that we talked about in front of the select board, September of 2020, November of 2020, January of 2021. All through those meetings, one of the consistent themes was, at least with the two northernmost buildings, the oldest buildings, we have to keep the granite and granite facade. So if you're hearing something different than that, it's just a fallacy. And you can actually, I'll put something up on Facebook where it seems to be the local water cooler with some videos and some timestamps, so you yourself can actually go see that if you want to.
Well, on that note, we are live. We are live on Facebook, on the Around the Clock Facebook page. So those of you that are watching, if you have feedback, please put it in the comments or send it to Peter, Brandy, and Michael. We are just about out of time, and the last thing I want to ask, and this is for each of you, what do you see is the most impactful thing you and or your department or committee or whatever can do to benefit Ashland? And Peter, I'm going to start with you. and benefit business and residents in Ashland.
Number one thing, sorry.
It's okay.
Turn my mic on.
There you go.
I think the number one thing, the planning, speaking for the, as a planner, I think the number one thing the planner is the position I hold is to help businesses come to town and answer questions and lay out the permitting processes that are before them. And to, I think, when I started and the town manager I worked for, we always had a motto of how do we get to yes? And how do we pave a path to yes? Because I think a lot of government, other local governments, they say no. They start at no, and then they say, how do we get to no? And so I think as a town planner, how the biggest thing I can do is to help businesses get to yes through the permitting avenues. I think for the planning board, the number one thing is to listen and to hold the public hearings and to hear from everybody. And I think what both the business organizations, businesses, and residents is that they can do within the planning process. The number one thing everyone can do as a whole is to communicate and to talk to each other and not stay in silos or vacuums, but to come to a consensus, to talk, to lay out their opinions, but to lay out their opinions but also to listen to everybody else's mindset so everyone can kind of work together and get on the same page.
Great. Brandy, same question for you. What can the select board do?
So first of all, we are a resource for you guys. So we serve all of you. And, I know that your day-to-day contact within town government is really Beth Reynolds. Every single time I think Beth has come to the select board with an idea or a grant proposal or anything, we are extremely supportive of everything that she does and on behalf of all of you. So I would say that our job is to support all of you. And the other thing I would say too is the thing that I'm most excited about right now is embarking on this comprehensive plan process, because I really do think like we are setting the stage for the next 20 years. And so for me, for Yolanda, who's also serving on the comprehensive plan committee with Michael and Peter, all of us here are engaged in this process. It's kind of an exciting thing to be a part of, because we really do, like I do this job because I love our community, like really, truly. I have a day job that, I mostly do, and no, I'm kidding. And a family and everything else that I balance. But I do this because of the love for the community and the love that I have for making a difference. And so anything, if you have ideas, if there's something that you need, like I said, I am here for you. Our board is here to support all the work that you guys are doing. I mean, the businesses community in Ashland has been phenomenal since COVID. I mean, when I think about what we've done to be able to keep the doors open at all of our businesses over the last 3 years, it's been amazing. So, and it's a testament to all of the work you guys are doing. So if there is anything that we can do to help support you, we are here for you.
Great. And Michael, you're going to have the last response to that question.
Sure.
As town manager, how are you supporting our businesses, and what do you think is the most important thing that you do to support the businesses and our residents?
And our residents. So I'm going to have three things.
Okay.
A couple very tangible and specific, and one a little bit more abstract. So first thing is, it might sound odd talking about it in a business forum, but I think our practice of acquiring and protecting open space is beneficial for everybody in the community. One of the things that I'm really proud about is since 2016, we have protected and preserved through deed restrictions, conservation restrictions, and purchases over 250 acres of open space, which has really, I think, been the largest land protection effort that the town has embarked upon since the 1950s and the transfer of the town forest to the town. I think that's vastly important. I think that's something that we have to continue to do, because I think it provides benefits from a sustainability standpoint, from a quality of life standpoint, from attractiveness standpoint. Number two is helping to build and maintain a quality team of staff and employees here at Town Hall. We don't talk enough about it. We have an incredible team of professionals and individuals here that really go above and beyond what is expected of people. I mean, a lot of our employees, it's not a 9-to-5 job. I'm texting with a ton of them at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. That's not a rare thing. Their dedication to the town is really impressive, and I wish people could just shadow us for a day sometimes to just kind of see what the day is like and how hard they work, and again, the professionalism that they bring to the organization. And then third and finally, I think the last thing is communication and making sure that we continue to have an open dialogue with residents and businesses. I think one of our more complicated jobs as part of our professions is trying to take very complicated stuff and distill it into a way that's digestible but still gives you the essence and accuracy of what's happening. So again, the complications, the dynamics between residential development, business development, open space, transportation, what are the complicating factors there? Why, and also why do we make the decisions that we do? We do a really good job of saying what the decisions are and okay, this is what we're going to do moving forward, and this is the feedback we got. What we do not do a good job doing, and I don't think any municipal government really does a great job of this, is explaining the why behind it. So how did you arrive at this conclusion? What were the factors that came into play there? And I think we've got to collectively do a better job of doing that and explaining those things. And I think that's something that myself and my team and the select board can really focus on, is that communication element moving forward.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Michael. Adam, are you going to close this out, or do you want me to close it out? Okay, I'm going to close this out. First of all, thank you to the Ashland Business Association. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you again to the three of you. I think the information that you've given is going to be very helpful, but the conversation doesn't have to end here. This is the start of the conversation, as with many things, between the comprehensive plan process that has been started, as well as just government is available to you should you have questions or issues or need help with something. So I would recommend to those of you sitting here, as well, whoever is watching this live or who watches it afterwards, government does work with you and for you. They may not always do what you like, but they do work with you and for you. So keep the conversation going. Thank you for allowing me to moderate this. I was very excited to be able to do this. I just think increasing this dialogue is something wonderful for the town of Ashland. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to our panelists. And we're going to sign off at that. It's 10 o'clock, and we can all go on with our business day. Thanks for being here.